somewhere in California, in the early 1970s, a suspect sat down beside the detective searching for him. He ordered a drink, listened to their conversations, and laughed at their jokes. He was the last person anyone would ever think to look at. This is a story about 6 young women whose lives were taken before they had the chance to fully live them, and about the failures that allowed it to happen. Their names deserve to be remembered: Anita Lucisa, Marianne Pess, Aiko Ku, Cindy Shaw, Rosalind Thorpe, and Allison Liu. The most unsettling part is not what happens in the shadows. It is what happens in the light. Part 1. A Town on Edge. In the early 1970s, Santa Cruz was a quiet coastal town in California. Surfers and retirees lived peacefully alongside a growing counterculture movement. The university opened in 1965, bringing young people who were drawn to the area's free-spirited atmosphere. Communes formed in the surrounding county as people migrated south from San Francisco, creating a lifestyle that attracted visitors from across the country. Hitchhiking was common during this time. People saw it as a symbol of trust and openness. However, that sense of safety was about to disappear. In 1972, young women began vanishing without explanation. 18-year-old Anita Lucisa disappeared. Marianne Pess, also 18, went missing. 15-year-old Aiko Ku was taken. 18-year-old Cindy Shaw never came home. Then 23-year-old Rosalind Thorpe and 21-year-old Allison Liu vanished from the Santa Cruz campus. Police struggled to find patterns. Missing person reports flooded the department. The young women seemed to have nothing in common beyond their age and the fact that they hitchhiked. The community had no idea the person responsible walked among them freely, trusted by the very officers searching for him. Investigators considered connections to the local counterculture scene. The randomness of the cases made them nearly impossible to solve. Without clear motives or connections between the missing, detectives had little to pursue. The press called the unknown individual the co-ed butcher. Officers began picking up underage hitchhikers and taking them to juvenile hall, which sparked public outrage. Police defended the practice as necessary to protect people, but the tension between safety and freedom divided the community. By April 1973, the department had no suspects and no clear direction. Then a routine registration check put a name on their radar. A name every single one of them already knew. Part 2. The Man Among Them. Detective Michael Alufi received a dealer's record of sale flagged by a clerk. A man had attempted to purchase a firearm, and though his record was expunged, the clerk noticed something concerning beneath the blackout marks: a prior involvement in a serious case in Madera County. The registered owner was Edmund Kemper, known to local officers as Big Ed. The individual they were looking for had been socializing with them the entire time. At 6 feet 9 inches and 280 pounds, Kemper was a regular at the jury room, a bar frequented by police after shifts. According to Detective Alufi, officers found him friendly and outgoing, someone who fit in easily. Nobody considered him a concern. He lived with his mother in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Alufi was assigned to retrieve Kemper's registered firearm. When he arrived at the address, he could not locate the correct residence. As he searched, a car pulled up. A man lay across the front seat, working beneath the dashboard. When Alufi approached and the driver stepped out, the detective immediately knew this was Edmund Kemper. The man towered over him despite Alufi standing 6 feet tall. Kemper cooperated fully. He retrieved his keys and opened the trunk. Alufi and his partner moved to opposite sides, hands ready, as Kemper reached inside. The trunk contained only a bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside was the registered firearm. Alufi noticed the trunk had no liner, which struck him as unusual, but he collected the item and left without incident. He filed the firearm at the station and considered the matter closed. 2 weeks later, everything changed. Officer Jim Cunner was working the night shift when he overheard a colleague taking a call from Kemper. Cunner knew Big Ed and got on the line. Something was clearly wrong. Kemper was calling from a phone booth in Pueblo, Colorado. He had not slept in days. Kemper said he had done something terrible. He had acted against his mother and her friend. They were at his house. He asked for Detective Alufi specifically because Alufi knew how to find the residence. Officers reached Alufi at home. As he absorbed the information, he felt overwhelmed. A deputy broke the back window to enter Kemper's house. Inside a closet, beneath a sheet, they found evidence confirming what Kemper had said. Then Kemper made a statement that redefined the entire investigation. He told Connor he was responsible for what happened to all the co-eds, too. The friendly men who spent time with officers and blended into their world had been responsible for the disappearances for months. Santa Cruz's nightmare had a face, and it belonged to someone the police had trusted completely. The question now was how someone like this even comes to exist. And the answer started much earlier than anyone expected. Part 3. A Troubled Beginning. Edmund Kemper was born in 1948, the middle child in a family of strict parents. His parents maintained rigid household rules with no flexibility. Growing up in Burbank, California, Kemper looked up to his father, but had a difficult relationship with his mother, Clarnell. According to investigators, she was harsh and frequently critical of him throughout his childhood. When Kemper was 9, his parents separated after years of conflict. Clarnell took Edmund and his 2 sisters and moved away. The boy was already showing concerning behavior. He damaged his sister's dolls in disturbing ways. At 10 years old, he made an unusual comment about his teacher that revealed a troubling thought process far outside normal childhood development. Kemper's behavior grew darker. He moved from damaging dolls to mistreating animals. According to court records, he harmed pets in ways that troubled those who learned about it. These acts followed patterns researchers would later identify as common warning signs. His mother responded by locking him in the basement at night. According to Kemper's later statements, Clarnell feared he might threaten his sisters. Kemper described the basement room as a frightening place with only basic furnishings and a bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. He said he could hear rats moving in the darkness. The isolation deepened his feelings and fed his troubling thoughts. As a teenager, Kemper left to find his father in Los Angeles, hoping to live with the parent he looked up to. His father rejected him. Instead, Kemper was sent to live with his paternal grandparents on their remote farm. There, the troubled teenager's thoughts became actions for the first time. Kemper found his grandmother to be controlling, much like his mother. One day, while his grandfather was out, a confrontation occurred that resulted in his grandmother's passing. When he realized his grandfather would return and discover what had happened, Kemper made the decision that his grandfather would meet the same fate when he arrived home. The reasoning was difficult to understand. He claimed he did not want his grandfather to experience the pain of the discovery. Investigators found the explanation incomprehensible. Kemper was 15 years old. He was evaluated and placed in a Atascadero State Hospital. What happened inside those walls would shape everything that followed. And the system that was supposed to stop him was about to make its most critical mistake. Part 4. Inside the hospital. The facility housed 1,600 patients, including dozens who had been involved in serious incidents and 800 others with various conditions. According to Dr. William Schonberger, the psychology staff numbered only about 10 people to manage this population. Though not Kemper's therapist, Schonberger had regular contact with him. He found Kemper intelligent and cooperative, someone who followed the rules. Kemper's intelligence helped him gain trust. Staff allowed him to assist with administrative tasks for the psychology department. This gave him access to detailed case files, records that described methods and explicit details of past incidents. Kemper read everything. He had entered the hospital at 15 with no relationship experience. Inside, his troubling thoughts merged with other compulsions. According to later testimony, he developed a mindset that treated people as objects rather than as individuals. He wanted control over someone, not connection with them. Kemper also accessed psychological test materials. He learned what doctors wanted to hear, memorizing appropriate responses. He knew how to present himself as improved. After 5 years, the 20-year-old was released. Doctors recommended he not live with his mother. The youth authority ignored this advice. Kemper moved back in with Clarnell. His social life was virtually non-existent. According to defense investigator Harold Cartwright, Kemper felt uncomfortable around women and described himself as lonely. At 21 or 22, he had likely never been on a date. The isolation was significant. He began picking up hitchhiking co-eds, and what started as something he told himself was harmless was already far from it. Part 5. A pattern takes shape. According to Kemper's later confession to Detective Alufi, he spent months refining his approach. He drove all over Central California and down to Los Angeles, picking up young women as practice runs. He developed a harmless appearance, friendly, helpful, and unthreatening. He developed methods. After a hitchhiker got in, he would claim their door was not closed properly. Given his size, he could reach across the entire car, open the door, close it, then disable the locking mechanism. If the passenger became afraid and tried to leave, the door would not open. Only after months of preparation did he act. On May 7, 1972, he picked up 2 18-year-old friends near the Berkeley campus, Marianne Pess and Anita Lucissa. According to his confession, he drove them to a remote location and carried out his first acts against the young women. The pattern had begun, and the police had no idea who was responsible. Meanwhile, the person they were searching for was hiding in plain sight. While Santa Cruz police searched desperately for the co-ed butcher, Edmund Kemper sat beside them at the jury room, having drinks and listening to their conversations. According to Officer Jim Cunner, he appeared at the bar regularly during the months when young women were disappearing. Officers found him likable and easy to talk with. The situation gave Kemper exactly what he wanted. He could sit among ongoing investigators, knowing he was the person they were searching for, and feel completely accepted. Experts who later studied the case noted that many individuals like Kemper demonstrate a fascination with law enforcement, sometimes to monitor investigations, sometimes simply for the sensation of being close to those pursuing them. On September 14, 1972, he encountered 15-year-old Aiko Ku hitchhiking. According to his confession, she had missed her bus to San Francisco and worried about being late for dance class. She had made a sign to improve her chances of getting a ride. Kemper drove toward San Francisco but kept going past the city. The young woman became terrified as she realized what was happening. To avoid detection, he disposed of evidence in different locations. He left evidence related to Aiko Ku in a remote mountain area, close to Detective Terry Medina's home. According to Medina, the spot was isolated in the 1970s, with nothing around for miles. Of all the cases, Medina would later say this one stayed with him most. Kemper carried out 3 more incidents targeting Rosalind Thorpe, Allison Liu, and 18-year-old Cindy Shaw, who babysat for Officer Jim Connor's children. According to Connor, he considered her trustworthy and pleasant, a responsible young woman trying to pay for college. But the whole thing was about to unravel, and it started with the one person Kemper had never been able to escape. Part 6. The End of the Spree. By March 1973, Kemper had been responsible for 6 incidents involving young women, in addition to what had occurred with his grandparents. Then Detective Alufi's visit to retrieve the firearm changed everything. According to Kemper's later statements, he believed Alufi was investigating him, that police knew he was responsible, and were building their case. The paranoia consumed him. He worried his mother would learn what he had done. More than that, he had thought about confronting his mother since childhood. The time had come to act. At 4 in the morning, he entered his mother's bedroom. Then he turned his attention to her friend, who came looking for her shortly after. Kemper got in his car and drove for 3 days without sleeping, moving east with no clear destination. Finally, from a phone booth in Pueblo, Colorado, he called the police and turned himself in. He was exhausted and ready for it to end. When officers entered Clarnell's apartment, nothing appeared disturbed. The scene looked like someone had left for vacation. They found evidence beneath the mattress. Under it lay a note, "Sorry gents for the mess, but really had no time." According to Detective Medina, it was the first time in his career a suspect had left the police a note. Edmund Kemper was taken into custody and immediately began talking. According to Detective Alufi, he gave investigators every detail they could want, leading them to locations and explaining his methods. Most individuals in his position either refuse to discuss their actions or desperately want to be at the center of the story. Experts noted that Kemper fell into the second category, and when he finally sat in that courtroom, what came out would leave everyone in the room struggling to make sense of who they were really looking at. Part 7. The Trial. In October 1973, his trial began. Both prosecution and defense sought to answer the question consuming everyone. Why would this large, friendly, cooperative man carry out such acts? Defense investigator Harold Cartwright spent over 100 hours interviewing Kemper. According to Cartwright, despite the prisoner's enormous size, he never felt at risk. Kemper seemed calm and reasonable throughout their conversations. However, his behavior with women appeared to be different. Cameron Jackson, a graduate psychology student, was asked to perform a personality evaluation on Kemper. She sat alone in the room with him, reading questions as he cooperated fully. Then, without warning, he had an outburst. According to Jackson, the reaction was overwhelming. She believed the trigger was a question related to women, combined with the fact that a woman was asking it. In the courtroom, Kemper's recorded confessions played for the families. The parents of the young women sat listening to accounts of what had been done to their daughters. Their faces showed deep pain. According to those present, these young women had been working toward careers, possibly planning families. All of that was taken. On November 8, 1973, Edmund Kemper was found guilty on 8 counts and sentenced to life imprisonment. The question remained, what drove him to these actions? Was it his broken home and his mother's treatment? Was he born with something different in his psychology? According to Harold Cartwright, Kemper only once hinted at motivation. He said it was about control. That was the only explanation he ever offered. Experts described Kemper as fitting a specific psychological profile. He showed no remorse and demonstrated no compassion. Everything centered on him. Some compared his view of others to someone handling an object, something to be processed, nothing more. The debate over nature versus environment had no clear answer in his case. Some experts pointed to biological factors. Others emphasized his upbringing, the strict household, the difficult relationship with his mother, the isolation in the basement. Perhaps he was directing deep resentment toward his mother all along, acting out against others until he could finally confront Clarnell herself. What he left behind, and what it tells us about how this could ever happen, is something the people closest to this case never stopped thinking about. 6 young women lost their futures because of Kemper's actions. Anita Lucisa, Marianne Pess, Aiko Koo, Cindy Shaw, Rosalind Thorpe, and Allison Liu each had plans that would never come to pass. According to those who knew the families, they carried that loss decades later. The pain as present today as it was in 1972. Edmund Kemper remains imprisoned, a case study in human psychology. His story offers no comfort and few clear answers. It stands as a reminder that deeply dangerous individuals can be the ones who blend in most easily, who sit beside us and seem completely harmless. The case proved that those capable of such acts do not always appear threatening. Sometimes they look like everyone else. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the case of Edmund Kemper, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.